Welcome back to Edgework here on the Hammer Betting Network, a daily live NHL show, Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Today is Thursday, May 4th, and we got a new sponsor here on the Edgework show. If you can see there on your screens, if you're watching on YouTube, you see in the bottom corner, yes, that would be the Pinnacle Sportsbook. And Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook, available to bettors in Ontario. Now, you can find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsible, and it is currently not available in the U.S. But thank you to our new sponsors at Pinnacle there. Pinnacle, I mean, so money, Russ. You guys can speak to Pinnacle and how good their lines are in terms of shaping the market, especially here in the NHL, and what they, how they kind of set everything and what we base things off of when we look at the market for games and see the Pinnacle prices. So Pinnacle is definitely somewhere where you should have an account with. Yeah, thank you to Pinnacle for being a new sponsor here on the show. And yeah, as Insight says, May the 4th be with you. I forgot about that there today. Today is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. But we'll talk about a little bit about last night's games. The Oilers losing to Vegas there, the Canes defeating the New Jersey Devils as well. We'll get into tonight's games, give our best bets. So if anyone has thoughts in the chat about what went on last night, if you have thoughts about tonight's games, your own best bets, please make sure to send them in the chat there in real time. And if you're not subscribed yet to the Edgework channel, I don't know what you're doing. Hit that subscribe button and so money. I don't know if you have it available, but you could also smash the like button. Takes 2 seconds. Just smash the like button. Real easy. Hit the like button, help here support the show. Russ, I'm going to you first. We talked before the playoffs started about Devils futures that you were holding on to, about how you may look to play things as the playoffs went on. So your Devils get through the first round there, but then they drop one last night to the Carolina Hurricanes, 5-1. Is there any cause for concern with the Devils and what went on last night against the Canes?
I mean, no, not after one game. I think we talked about this a little bit in the first round, and they shifted some lines and they actually got it figured out, quickly in the first round. Last night, I'm not sure what happened with Akira Schmid. He just was not himself. I'm not sure if it was nerves being in the second round, nerves after winning his first playoff series, but he just did not look like the same goalie that we have, been come to know and love here on the show. So there's no concern after one game. They did get actually dominated. The Canes played really, really well, which surprised me. I thought the Devils would come out, playing a lot better after that game 7 against the Rangers, where they just absolutely dominated. But no, I mean, this team is, we've talked about this team a number of times on the show. They're very young. They're very, kind of a little bit inconsistent. It's a lot of buy-in. It's a lot of getting, the guys to buy into what Lindy Ruff has to say. And, it's a game-to-game issue. I wouldn't be surprised if they come back in the even series next game. So, no, there's no room, no cause for concern after one game yet.
So, Money, what happened with your guy, Akira Schmid, there last night? You think he's going to be capable of bouncing back here in the limited experience that he has so far in the NHL?
Yeah, I think he's capable of bouncing back. I just hope that Lindy Ruff doesn't make any knee-jerk reactions here and go back to Vanacek and Ned. But I think Russ nailed it. Mike in the comments there, the Devils had no legs, and that's going to happen with a young team. Like we've we've touched on this before, right? Like they themselves said after the first two games in New Jersey in the first round that there were nerves there was inexperience there. If they are telling you that and they're outwardly okay with admitting that, that's
Yeah.
something that you need to file away as well, right? So, um, and I think that it's pretty logical to assume that going forward in these kind of situations, you may see that coming up. Maybe if they make it to the next round, we'll see that again in Game One of the conference finals, right? So,
Right.
I'm not I'm with Russ. I'm not overly concerned. I think that as the game went on, the Devils started getting better. Although that does probably have to do with Carolina up 3-0, so they're not going to push as much. But no, there's no concern. Like read the bottom of my thing there, right? Like I think we all have to relax after Game One.
Right. Yeah, and I see inside here saying Devils started the same against the Rangers. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe that was back to back 5-1 losses. Was it not in that series in
yeah.
that first round series against
Mhm.
the Rangers? Yeah. So no cause for panic. The other thing we had talked about, and it's like it's not like it's something to look into and essentially for betting or looking forward at trends moving forward, but of the 8 teams that advanced on past the first round, only 2 of them won
Yeah.
game one. It's the playoffs. There's a reason that it's a best of 7
Yep.
series. They don't call it over after game one. So you continue to play the games, and that's what they're there for. Now, so money, you do have the relax up there. Is that the message to Oilers Nation this morning? Everyone else who is an Oiler right now, telling them to relax.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about this game. I'll catch you guys later. Um, no, but seriously, I think any discussion about last night's game, it needs to start with giving credit to Vegas and what they did. They clearly had a game plan going into that game, and they executed throughout the game. So we knew that they had a better defense than in terms of generating offense from the back end than the Kings did. We also knew that, surprisingly enough, in that Kings series, they there was a lot more space for the Oilers. So going into that game, Vegas had the game plan. They were going to close off all the gaps. They were going to make it hard to skate through the neutral zone. They were going to
Yeah.
have the forecheck going, everybody man on at all times, and that was a tough adjustment for the Oilers to make after right after coming off that King series, um, and they couldn't do it. We saw in the first period all the turnovers from the defensemen. We saw they just couldn't get to the neutral zone. Throughout the game, it got to a point where you have Connor McDavid now, again, a lead player, best player in the world right now, but even he cannot go through a team through the neutral zone in the
Yep.
second round of the playoffs 1-on-3 every time. And they just had no choice because nothing was happening for them. And the other thing too is that, so Woodcroft started 11-7, right? Fine, that's coach's decision. He knows his players better than I do. But then Janmark goes down, so now you have you have 10 forwards, so you have no choice but to blend your lines, right? And what ends up happening with that is that you're blending lines against a team that is constantly on you, right? It it really gets taxing and tough to generate anything when when that's happening. So throughout the game, the Oilers started getting better. Now, looking ahead to game two a little bit, we know that that was Vegas's ceiling, right? That is the absolute best that this team can play, and that was a perfect game plan, perfectly executed. With the playoffs and why, like we talk about the going from game to game, you it's all about the adjustments, right? So we know
Yep.
that there's nothing Vegas is going to do differently. This is their game plan. They won. There's nothing to change there. Are the Oilers able to make adjustments? So I think they are. There's little things they can do in terms of like generating speed in the getting through the neutral zone, right? There's stuff like that they can do. Maybe they need to start dumping it in more. Maybe they need to get their forecheck going. So there's adjustments they can make on on that front. So not overly concerned. I'm more irritated at the way that the Oilers played to start that game than I am with going forward. And over a course of a 7 game series, the way that Vegas played, it's really hard to keep that up. So I
Yeah.
do think that that the Oilers should respond. I'm not overly worried. I'm just annoyed that I lost money on a team that had trouble getting going in the first period.
There
Yeah.
were a few mental lapses in there too. I would even say as well, just like the late 2 minutes. I kind of talk about the Woodcroft decisions. I mean, not pulling the goalie until there was like a minute and 10 left, and then Darnell Nurse hopping out 20 feet early, kind of thing,
Yeah,
to get the too many men,
yeah.
which negates the odd man opportunity, some of that kind of stuff. But I don't know, Russ, did you have any thoughts on what went on in that Oilers game last night?
Yeah, I think so many summed it up very, very well. Annoyed is a great reaction when you said that. I completely agree. Frustrated. I've been playing this Oilers over all playoffs. For some reason, we went on the Oilers last night as opposed to going on the over, and it's just like the watching the first period. It's like completely frustrating, absolutely infuriating. But it's one game series. I think like so many said, this Vegas Knights team, that is their ceiling. They played one of their best games, probably the best game of the series they have in them. They played. And then on the flip side, Stuart Skinner, maybe one of the worst games of the playoffs. Maybe he played probably his floor, probably his worst game of the series that he'll play. So if you switch those two things, the Oilers are right back in it. And I was actually surprised to see that series at a plus number this morning. So yeah, I played the Oilers plus 110, plus 115 for the series. Very surprised that even flipped to the Vegas being the favorite there. Because I kind of sort of expected this going in. The Vegas Knights, they're a tough team to play at home. That place just gets rocking in the playoffs. That game one was absolutely nuts. And like you said, a lot of mental lapses for the Oilers. So I agree completely with everything so many said. I look for them to bounce back, in game two. And I think the series price is a very, very good play right now.
Yeah, that Desharnais, he has reached Justin Hall territory. So money, he is cannot be out there. Like,
Like he was developing so well, and like I had high hopes for him. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that in like the back end there, they might have found something, right? But yeah, he's starting to struggle now. I think that as the forecheck's picking up, he's having a tough time
yeah,
making the right reads.
yeah. All right. Well, there you go. There's a recap of last night's games, and now we'll get into tonight's games with our best bets. And as we go through this, yes, Pinnacle is our sponsor, and we do recommend that you should have an account with Pinnacle. But even as Pinnacle will say, one of the best things you could possibly do is line shop, and it is one of the easiest ways to improve as a sports bettor. So make sure you are always getting the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like BetStamp to do so. BetStamp compares odds across every sports book for games, futures, and player props. You can save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet, and download the app today. And one thing you'll notice here as we pull up the odds, Pinnacle is going to have the best odds for the majority of things we are going to bet on, because take the least hold of the majority of the books. So just naturally becomes one of the best places to bet as well, even as we go through these games. So we'll start here with the Florida-Toronto game, looking at this Panthers team. Comes into Toronto for game one, steals that one away from the Leafs there. The Leafs, I thought, had played a pretty decent game, weren't able to capitalize on opportunities, but Florida did what they did against Boston. They forecheck fast, they move up and down the ice quickly, and they bring a ton of pressure trying to force you into mistakes. Now this Florida team is a team who is not going to go away at all. They're going to continue to play that same way through all 7 games of this series. Now looking at them again here tonight, plus 170, the Leafs minus 180 at home. So money, is this just a little too far on the Leafs to maybe want to get behind here at all? I mean, minus 180 on them despite being at home. Would you have any interest in that? Would you look at an over or a total in this game? Like, how would you go about playing this one?
Yeah, I think that the side there is probably where it should be. I had it there as well. The Leafs, I don't think, as you mentioned, that they played poorly. I think that there was a lot of chances that they should have converted on that they didn't. I think they did enough to generate on Bobrovsky. I was going back at Bobrovsky's number. That was the in terms of my scorecard there, that was the best he's played since a game he had at the end of February. So yeah, do do it again, right? So that's why like I did like the over, but that has been bet into range as well. So that's not something that I will recommend. But one thing that does stand out to me is the Leafs team total over. I do think that um, I'm basically betting against Bobrovsky doing this again, right? So, and I think that the Leafs did enough to generate there. I think that they do win the game. I think that it was the team total was in the mid or the low minus 140s. I'm fine with that. That's the way that I'm looking at this game.
Right. Well, I'm curious kind of your thoughts there, someone. I'm going to go back to you on this one because I know you do a little bit more with goaltending. Bobrovsky, I've heard of it. People talking about. People have asked me, especially because I do a lot of the Leaf stuff. Like, oh, are you worried about Bobrovsky maybe going and becoming the Vezina caliber goaltender that he's been? But I look back to the series against Boston. Even in those games that he played in, he wasn't mind blowing throughout the entire time. There was actually a very up and down series for him. He comes in, he lets in a 6 spot, then he comes back in, has a good game, then he lets in, I believe it was like 4 or 5 the next game, then he has a pretty good final game. But it wasn't necessarily like this guy was out of his mind in that series. He had very good moments. He had some good games where he stole some goals away from Boston that maybe they should have scored, or allowed them to get into a position where they could steal some of those games, but it wasn't necessarily on his back. Do you think this is more of a progression to Bobrovsky getting to that level that he used to play at, that allowed Florida or made them want to sign him at $10.5 million? Or is this more of just who he is, where he's going to have a good game, kind of tail off, and then good game again, could be up and down?
Yeah, so it's interesting because Bobrovsky's career trajectory here is not it's not uncommon, right? So he's got the pedigree, he has the Vezina in him, right? So we know that he has that caliber. Now the problem is that um, with goalies like that, you'll always see glimpses of that throughout their whole career. But the issue becomes that as they as they progress in their career, that level cannot be sustained, right?
Right.
And we saw that in the Boston series, where if you look at it holistically, he was average overall,
Yeah.
with glimpses of that Vesna in him, right? And then that's the way that he played the Boston series. So that's another reason why I'm saying that I need to see him do it again, which is why like I would be fading him in terms of this team total. He has that
Right.
capability, but I'm betting against him being able to sustain that on 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 a game over game basis.
Russ, I know you were looking at the over here as well, and I would imagine probably as so many has it here too. Now it's a little bit out of range, but would you have any thoughts still on the over or on the total in this game? Would there be any way you might want to get behind it? I see here Eric in the chat saying don't mind the over 6.5 minus 128 at the Canby books. Would that be something you'd be interested in, or do you think that might be too far as well?
Yeah, no, I would play it right there. I'd play it
Yeah.
right up to about 130 or so. Minus 128 is fine. Yeah, Circa's got it. Bet Rivers got minus 128. Yeah, I mean, so money pretty much handicapped this for me. I think he explained it very, very well on the Leafs side. I think I do kind of qualify Bobrovsky as kind of a hot and cold goalie. Some days he can play really well and stand on his head, but most days, especially this season, that's really not not the option. And we were on the over in game one. Just can't believe that didn't go over. Absolutely
Yeah.
mind blowing. It ended up 4-2. That was probably one of the worst beats I've had this season. Just watching that game, it could have been 2-2 at the end of the first. It could have been 3-2, but ended up 1-0 at the end of the first period. Just absolutely crazy. And then it's 3-2
Yeah.
at the end of the second. And just how we don't get that empty net goal is nuts. But yeah, looking at some of the numbers here. I mean, Toronto Leafs had 5.8 expected goals in that game, and yeah, a lot of them came at the end of the game when Florida was kind of sitting back and not not pressing their offense as much. But I think the Leafs will be completely fine here. I think that, this is something like a 5-3 victory or 5-2 victory for the Leafs. I agree with so many's look on the Leafs team total completely. I think that, you could go that direction. You could go with the over. I don't think, I would rather take the 6.5 at a juice price than take the 7. I could honestly see a 3-3. I could see a 3-3 game here as well. So yeah, I'm on the over here. It's been fairly good all playoffs. We were on most of the Panthers overs in the Boston series, and most of them just flew over the total. So yeah, and you can see that Vegas has kind of picked up on this. Normally they wouldn't make adjustments like this, but when the expected goals were so high in that first game, even though it went under the total, they have really, really juiced this over. So, it's pretty obvious that they're making a significant adjustment. I don't think it's quite enough. I think it probably should be 7 even money. So, yeah, I think over 6.5 is a fine play. I do have one player prop that I'm looking at here as well, if you want me to jump into that.
Yep.
We're just going to go back to Brandon Montour over 2.5 shots on goal. He's just been an absolute beast. Some of these guys have just a switch that they can flip in the playoffs. Yeah, I think that number is just fine. -125, -130. Yeah, I would play it all the way up to probably -135. But yeah, some of these players just have a switch that they can flip in the playoffs, and I think Brandon Montour is one of those guys. It seems like he's just kind of a renewed energy after the trade, and he just gets the puck on his stick and he just flings it from wherever he's at. And it seems like it's normally on net. And there's a lot of guys that aren't like that, kind of skate around and, don't do that. So, and he's one of the guys that are getting a bunch of chances. The Maple Leafs defense has been very good this year. One of the reasons we've liked them all year is their defense, but they do give up some points to defensemen. Of all of the positions, they give up the most points to defensemen. So, I think, over 2.5, -130 or so is a fine price to go over here.
Okay, so we will lock that in. I see a question in the chat here. Daniel H asking, what about Tkachuk over 1.5 points? Haven't seen the odds yet here. I can pull them up on the screen. Russ, I was curious, any thoughts from you on Tkachuk's point total? Over 1.5 plus 140 right now. You can see that's the best price available. There is 138s, 135s around. So everything is basically around in that area. What are your thoughts on Tkachuk points?
Yeah, I was looking heavily at Tkachuk this morning, and I don't think that's a bad look at all. This dude is another guy that has a playoff switch that he can flip. He's just been playing absolutely amazing. There's nothing I can say that that is anti that. I think that's a fine look. If that's the way you want to go, I think that is a better look than his shots on goal. Because that's actually drifting up a little higher. And, I'd like that plus money value there. So, yeah, I think that's fine. He could easily have a goal and assist. He could easily get there tonight.
All right. Yeah, also Matthew Nyes was brought up the other day there, and he did end up scoring that day that he was brought up. But as well, a question in the chat, I just looked up, Jeff's asking, are Leafs going 11-7 game again, or Aston Reese back? Mark Masters tweeted out that Sam Lafferty left the ice early and Zach Aston Reese stayed out, so likely going 12-6 again and just flip-flopping Lafferty in for Aston Reese. So seems that'll be the case for the line adjustments there. And then in terms of the over, just want to for the sake of transparency here, I went to track the over 6.5 -128, and as soon as we went to track it, that price was gone, so it was not currently available anymore. I know. So so it was taken away. Russ, so I'm not tracking it there because with that 128 not available. But Russ, is there a price that you'd be comfortable playing it to? I see -135s. There's some 130s. Those aren't widely available. So again, we're not going to track those. But 135s out there, 131s as well, especially at some of these books in Canada. Where would you kind of be interested in going with this one?
I think 135 would be the max. That's pretty much it. And then I honestly, like I said, I probably wouldn't even play it at anything higher than that. So yeah, I think you could still lock this in. I have I've got over 7 here the majority of the time.
Right.
And then, just to address a couple of the questions in the comments, I don't think you can go wrong with player props in this series. I think this is such a high event series that there's going to be a lot of shots, a lot of scoring from both teams. So, if you want to go with knives, you want to do a little same game parlay on a couple of guys to score, that's not a bad look at all. I think we could get, 5-3, 5-4 game, kind of a wild one.
Right. All right. Moving on to the next game here, go to the Western Conference, the Seattle Kraken, and their second game in the series against the Dallas Stars, up 1-0, after the first game. We see Joe Pavelski puts up a 4-goal performance in his return from the concussion, and yet that isn't good enough. Imagine that, guys. You go to dinner after the game, you're out there, someone comes up to you, says, "Hey, what do?" You say, "Yeah, I'm an NHL player." "Oh, did you play tonight?" "Yeah, I did." "You score?" "Yeah, 4 goals, actually." "Did you guys win?" "No, you didn't win." 4-goal performance, you didn't win. Same thing for Leon Draisaitl last night in Edmonton as well, I guess. But that Dallas game goes to overtime. They lose that one, and this Kraken team continues to just find ways to win games. Now looking at them, plus 188 on the road here in Dallas for game 2. So money, is this kind of, did you expect to see that price minus 195 on Dallas even after what we had seen in game 1 with Seattle and the way that they continued to play and just that style of play that they bring, this like playoff hockey, slow it down, grind it out kind of play?
I did. I mean, the market sentiment on the Stars is still very high, as it should be. Um, excuse me. That was similar to Vegas. That was Seattle's ceiling, and
Right.
we had and we still ended up in an overtime coin flip, even after Ottinger played the worst 2 minutes of his young career, right? And
Right.
we still got to a overtime coin flip. So I'm not surprised that Dallas opened there. They should be there.
Mm-hmm.
I have trouble expecting and envisioning Seattle to kind of continue this. Um, and the other thing too is that the under was what I was looking at. But it's funny. I think 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago, I would have been able to bet this under, but it was adjusted nicely. And with the juiced 5.5, I can't get there with Grubauer right now, especially in a game that I think that Dallas should win. Price is off. It's fair to me, so there's no edge for me on the Dallas side, but I fully expect Dallas to respond and win this game.
Right. And Russ, any thoughts from you here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. So money, I agree completely. I think that was probably one of Ottinger's worst games of the year. Definitely, his floor, his worst game probably of the series. So if he comes back and plays a normal game tonight like he should, I think the Dallas Stars should be completely fine, which justifies a price like that on the side. I think that's a normal price, and honestly, like a Dallas in regulation is not a terrible look in my opinion. Gun to my head, but I won't have a play on either the side or the total. I am looking at one more player prop here, and it's one that we've played, countless times over the last few weeks. It's the Jaden Schwartz over 2.5 shots on goal. He's been playing really, really well. I mean, he went over 5 of 7 games in the Colorado series, including an 11 shot. Yeah, I think that minus 130 is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I locked it in at minus 130 or minus 125 this morning. Yeah, I was not on this in the first game. I wanted to see, kind of how he played against a little bit better Dallas team, especially on the road. But he really had no issue. He had 3 in the first game, but it seemed like he could have had a lot more. And he just plays, he plays so much time on the ice. He has so much time with the puck that I think this is a great play. In the game 1, he had the highest expected goals of any Seattle Kraken player. So, I think, fairly easy handicap for me. As far as this series goes, I wish we would have, gone back and listened to ourselves because, it seems like we have all been high on the Kraken, as a team all year and just failed to bet them for whatever reason. And mainly it's because of goaltending. I love this team's defense all year. I love their grittiness, but I just could not get behind Philip Grubauer or Martin Jones in goal. And, it's finally happening where, teams playing gritty, playing defense, playing awesome, getting goal scoring from everybody, and they're actually getting very good goaltending now. But I agree with So Money where he said, that they played their best game of the series, probably that game one. So they should fall back down to earth a little bit in this next game. And Ottinger should probably be back on form. So I think, look for Dallas to even the series up, and hopefully Jaden Schwartz gets, plenty of shots on goal. But I think, I think this is probably a lower scoring game than game one for sure.
I'm curious you guys' thoughts on this. Jordan Mosel here in the chat just says, it feels like the teams that lost are extra juice due to must-win factor. Do you think that this plays any factor into the pricing of games and how the market shapes things ahead of these after, hey, the Leafs just lost, Dallas just lost, they're looking at game two, they're both home teams here as well, and there is a must-win factor to it, obviously not in an elimination sense, but more of a series projection standpoint. Do you think that goes into the pricing here at all, and how the market moves this and shapes this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's excuse me, there's always the premium that you're going to be charged in these quote unquote must win games. So
Right.
yeah, I think it plays into it. What I'm more interested in is that reconciling the premium that you have to pay with the ability of a team to make the necessary adjustments, right? So that the winning team, they're not going to do much differently, but the whole, like, the fundamental analysis of the playoffs is to see if the losing team can make that adjustments and whether they have the personnel to be able to do that. So in both these cases, I would argue that Toronto and Dallas, they do have the personnel to make those adjustments. I worry about New Jersey a little bit if Timo Meyer is not in the lineup, but of course that's going to be price dependent as well. So in this case, yes, you are paying the premium on Toronto and Dallas, but you have to assess if they're able to make those adjustments with the personnel that they have.
Right.
Yeah. You could go through, any sport that has a 7-game playoff series, NBA, NHL, anything, and then go from game one to game two. And there's probably, a 3 to 5% adjustment on the, if the home team's favored, and then if they lose, on that must win game two, there's probably, on average, like a 5% adjustment for odds makers. And that's pretty much what we're seeing here, right? It was like minus 185 for the Leafs first game, and now they're closing probably minus 190 or 195. So yeah, it's a very, very necessary, very, basic, makes sense adjustment. And like So Money said, that's kind of our job, is to parse through some of the noise, some of the underlying metrics, and decide if this team can actually make adjustments, and if the premium is worth it, or if not, obviously cut the other side. But yeah, exactly like So Money said there, it's definitely the odds makers are definitely privy to that information and do adjust it as the series goes for sure.
And as Jordan Mosel said in the chat there, the Spider-Man meme, Draisaitl 4 goals and a loss, Pavelski 4 goals and a loss. This is the same thing. Same thing either way. They're both probably feeling the same way after those performances, and yet
one of them is 38 though.
That is true. That is true. You might be feeling a little worse. Yeah. And also here, Insight saying, Insight has been firing away bets at the end of every show of other sports. And I think it was with us last time, he was firing away NASCAR bets in the chat there. So there you go. There's his baseball pick for today. Jays first 5, minus 0.5, minus 112. Thanks, Insight. Appreciate it. All right. If you guys have not hit that subscribe button here on the channel on Edric HQ, please make sure to do so. I don't know what you're waiting for if you're watching and you haven't done it yet. We do have daily previews and picks as well between each round. We have series previews breaking down what we think could go on in the series, how the teams match up against each other, how they performed in their last round, as well as our favorite bets and series predictions. So you're going to want to see all of those, as well as the daily picks and previews live every day, Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So hit that subscribe button. And I took a look at the likes. considering how many people are watching right now, there is not enough. So if you are watching, you haven't hit like, smash the like button, help out on the show here as well. Thank you to our sponsor, Pinnacle. Brand new here today. Greatly appreciate them for hopping on board for the remainder of the playoffs here and hopefully into next season. And if you don't have a Pinnacle account, we do advise that you do get one. You must be 19 plus. It is available in Ontario, not in the US. But if you want to sign up for a Pinnacle account, click on over to betstamp.app/edgework as well, available in the description of this video. You can sign up for Pinnacle using that. It does help us help us support the show. So thank you guys so much for tuning in here today. Appreciate that. Russ, So Money, I appreciate you guys hopping on, and So Money, it's going to be okay. We saw the Oilers lose, saw the Leafs lose. It's fine. We're not panicked here. We're all good. Everything's okay. We're not going to freak out until maybe it's an 0-2. If that happens, then I'm going to be calling you freaking out. We're going to be in a dark place. But until then, it's all good. Keep your chins up. Things are going to be okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for the insight, the analysis. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. And for everyone else, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, for more daily picks and previews of myself and Rob Pizzola. Good luck on your bets tonight. And So Money, go Leafs go.